Good evening. This scheduled public hearing is called to order at 6:06 p.m. Mr. County Administrator, would you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, item number 25, Commissioners, is the first and only public hearing on a proposed ordinance that seeks to resolve uniformity issues and interpretations related to the requirements and procedures for street naming, to provide a process for appeals, and to provide for the updating of the policy manual. We have no speakers on this item. We're recommending option 1.
Great, thank you very much. And just also for the record, we did convene at 6:02 p.m. I think the timestamp on this computer is off by a bit. Thank you very much, Mr. County Administrator. First in the speakers queue, we have Commissioner Maddox, and then Dozier and Proctor. Commissioner Maddox.
Move option 1.
All right. Motion's been made for option 1 by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. I've got Commissioner Dozier in the speakers queue, and then Vice Chair Proctor.
Mr. Chair, all I was going to say was this is another example of constituent issues coming up and our staff recognizing that there needs to be improvements in a policy. It's a good effort. Truly appreciate it, Mr. County Administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. Vice Chair Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question is, what is the status of the naming of President Obama road and street? And were we not to look into an appropriate street or whatever? Have we concluded the review of that?
Mr. County Administrator.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Proctor's correct. We did request under a previous interpretation of the rules related to street naming. We requested the City of Tallahassee to consider that. We did not hear back. We sent several requests to that effect. We just did not get confirmation back. However, I think with these changes, if you'd allow me to work with the county attorney under our new interpretation of where the authority lies for street naming, even within the City of Tallahassee, and we could bring back an item to you for consideration of that.
Yes, sir. And I do have a couple of streets specific in mind, but if it's appropriate to wait for, I can do that as well. But I do have a couple of streets which I think would qualify. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. Seeing no other speakers in the queue, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of option 1, made by motion by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Dozier, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Mr. County Administrator, would you please introduce the next item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this item requests the board conduct the first and only public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the county's fertilizer ordinance to incorporate current state model and Florida administrative code requirements. As stated in the agenda item, Commissioners, the board has seen this item at several stages along the way and has provided guidance. The proposed ordinance before you reflects the state's model ordinance in large part and goes beyond that based on feedback from extensive engagement with community stakeholders in this process. Staff is able to answer any questions that you might have. I should also note, Commissioners, that we have 1 speaker in person and 2 virtual speakers that have registered to speak on this item. And we're recommending option 1.
Thank you, Mr. County Administrator. Would you please introduce the first speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, our in-person speaker first is Ben Castro.
Okay, got it. Mr. Castro, thank you again. And thank you for coming again today. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to virtual speakers. As we bring them up, I will just remind the participants, for those joining by video, you may experience a few second transition as we bring you into the meeting. When you're asked to speak, you'll be added to the meeting. You'll be prompted to unmute your device and to activate your video if you choose to do so. Again, you'll receive an automated prompt to unmute your device. Once prompted, please state your name and address for the record. And again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If we experience any technical difficulties during the call, please bear with us. If unresolved, we'll move to the next speaker. And with that, The first speaker is Robert Dial.
Mr. Dial, thank you very much for joining us today. Would you please state your name and full address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Robert Dial. My address is 2409 Oakdale Street, Tallahassee. I am a professor of emeritus of environmental planning at FSU, chair of the Wakulla Springs Alliance, and a riverboat tour guide at Wakulla Springs, among other things. I'm here tonight as a private citizen, not representing any organization. I want to acknowledge the effort by county staff to develop the proposed amendments and their accessibility. I've worked with them on this. They didn't agree with me, but we got along real well, and I want to commend them for that. I'm here to speak to the letter that I sent to each of the commissioners and the county administrator on May 5th, in which I urged you to table this proposal tonight and direct the staff to consult additional science relied upon by Alachua County in deciding to impose a several-month nitrogen fertilizer application ban. If we think about what happens to nitrogen fertilizer, there's three things that can happen. The first is it'll get taken up by the plant, which is what we would like it to do. The second is that some of it may leach into the soil and down through the bedrock and find its way into groundwater. And the third is that some of it may run off with stormwater and end up in surface water bodies, including our lakes, from which it may also reach Wakulla Springs. In deciding against a rainy season ban, staff cites let me back up a second. There's a 2018 IFAS report which determined that when fertilizers applied according to IFAS rates, that somewhere on the order of 60 to 32% of that nitrogen will not get taken up by the plant. And that means it will either get leached into the groundwater or run off into surface water bodies. In arguing against a rainy season ban, staff cites other IFAS research which found that fertilizer applied to healthy, active growing turf leaches very little nitrates. That study was done in a controlled setting, not in the field where we're all applying fertilizer to our lawns. The IFAS study that they cite explicitly acknowledges that it does not address runoff, and runoff is the primary reason for imposing a rainy season ban in the first place. In my letters that I shared with you, I shared the proposal that I made to staff, which is based on the growing season in Tallahassee, Leon County, and our rainfall patterns, and reflects IFAS guidance on when nitrogen should be applied in
Mr.
our
Dial?
area.
Mr. Dial,
Yes.
I'm sorry, your three-minute time limit has expired, sir.
Okay, do I get one more sentence or am I done?
I'm sorry, sir. We've reached the time limit. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, just ask you to take a look at that letter.
Thank you, sir. Mr. County Administrator, please introduce the next speaker.
The next speaker is Max Epstein.
All right, Mr. Epstein, thank you for participating. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, before we get started, this speaker and Mr. Castro, we went from the green light straight to the red light, and it was not the yellow light was supposed to give the warning to wrap up, but the yellow light did not come on for the last speaker. It did not come on for Mr. Castro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. White. I noticed that when Mr. Castro spoke earlier today. I think there's something wrong with that device up there, because I've not seen the yellow come up either. So
We'll take a look at it.
all right, thank you very much. Mr. Epstein, please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, Max Epstein, 1001 San Luis Road. And I'm sure you're probably going to already know that I believe that you should table this fertilizer ordinance, as I said, at your vote to approve this meeting or this vote here. I have to say, I don't think that staff has been listening to the citizens, and I know they do great work and I like working with them, but now we have the Sierra Club, the Florida Springs Council, the Florida Springs Institute. I believe the WSA may have made a statement. I know Bob is here. But this is incredibly important. It's important that we do everything that we can. And the Florida Springs letter, I think, says it best. The county commission should consider that passing a weaker fertilizer ordinance than other local governments that are competing for the same limited funding may put the county at a disadvantage as the perception spreads that Leon County is not serious about protecting Wakulla Springs. There are 14 counties and 100 municipalities over that have rainy season bans and stricter fertilizer ordinances. This is the number one thing that you can do to improve our water quality and reduce taxpayer funds down the road to clean it up. Like I said before, it costs between $30 and $50 per pound of phosphorus and nitrogen to remove through giant stormwater projects. This costs you nothing. It's the stroke of a pen, and it is keeping us in the 21st century. I've sent you numerous emails. We've met individually with pretty much every commissioner. We've been talking about this for months. This is incredibly important. Please table this. I would recommend actually giving the ordinance potentially over to the Sierra Club, who's an expert in these sorts of things. We've made lots of other suggestions, like expanding the TAP program in education, providing organic fertilizers at a discounted rate. If you go look at Piney Z right now, it's pea soup, it's green, it's disgusting, and people are fishing in it. Again, this body has the power to take the first step to clean our water and stop spending taxpayer dollars down the road. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Epstein. Mr. County Administrator, do you have a comment or two?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that concludes your speakers. Just at the very end note here, just to remind, Mr. Chairman. I was just wrapping up. If just as an endpoint here for commissioners on this item, we've got Nafal Asghazi, our Director of Environmental Services, as well as Barry Wilcox, who are joining us on the line. Should the board have any questions about any of the issues related to this item, we're happy to answer those for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Administrator. In the speaker's queue, I've got Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to say that the fertilizer ordinance, I'm looking at Commissioner Maddox here, and he's just reminded me. I'll go ahead and make a motion for staff recommendation. There you go. You have, okay, just for you. Thank you, sir. All right. Now, I'm going to caveat that in a minute, and I'm going to add an addendum I hope you will accept. But I make that motion because when I brought this item up, I believe it was last July, it's been nearly a year, our fertilizer ordinance, I'd heard from a lot of the same citizens that we've heard from in emails and others, we had not updated it since 2009, and the state had updated their fertilizer ordinance. Since then, our staff has looked at what other counties have been doing in depth. We've seen this come back a couple of times. And after February, when we had even more comments and questions about scheduling the public hearing, we asked them to, again, work with commercial and water quality experts to really make sure we were in the right posture. I really appreciate the updates that have been made since February. And by and large, I don't think I've heard from anyone who disagrees with the updated ordinance, with the revised ordinance, and with any of those issues. There's one caveat there. I'll come to that in a second, Mr. Chair, but except for this moratorium, this question about a summer moratorium on using fertilizer. For that reason, I don't think we should wait any longer to get a good work product over the finish line on the books and affirm that the ordinance that needed to be updated since '09 is in a really good place, and it does move the ball forward. So that's the first part, is we've done a tremendous amount of work and we should pass the ordinance as is. It does not mean that we have to be done with this question. We've got a lot of water quality issues outstanding. They're coming back to us. And as I've read through the Sierra Club's emails, Mr. Dial's emails, who has a wealth of experience on this, and I really do appreciate it, there's been a lot of questions that have come to my mind. Some people who typically would be in line on water quality issues disagree. They cite that our growing season is shorter than what we see in South Florida, in a lot of the places where we have these 3 to 4 month moratoriums in place. If we have a 6-month growing season, I'm not an expert, but that is what someone suggested to me. Doing a 3-month moratorium might really be challenging. Questions have also been raised about exemptions, fruit trees, vegetable gardens, other things like that. Fertilizing on turf, particularly at large-scale commercial spaces like a golf course, something like that, I understand the concern and the impact, and we have worked tremendously hard, particularly to protect Wakulla Springs. So in hearing from my colleagues and Commissioner Maddox, as promised, I would like to understand better where we sit vis-a-vis the South and Central Florida counties that have put in place this moratorium. I struggle with kind of a one-size-fits-all for our state. And I do think we're in a different, I know we're in a different temperate zone, but there might be different issues here. So I don't want to not address that issue. And Mr. County Administrator, I could look to you for some guidance here. Perhaps the next step is just a report, a status report digging into this. We can pull it, we can look at different issues, but I know there may be more study that needs to happen. There's only been a few IFAS studies that have been cited. There may be others, and some people have suggested that there's not as many good data points as you cite in the item. So I'm struggling with that piece a little bit, but I do think we should move it forward. So, Mr. Chair, with your permission, Ms. County Administrator, if you've got any thoughts about that piece of it and where we go from here, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. County Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Dozier. Well, we certainly recommend you move forward as your good motion does tonight with the ordinance. Relative to understanding better the various issues related to the moratorium idea and how it's been done in other areas, I don't want to miss the opportunity before I speak too soon and suggest what may be the best way to address that, to miss the opportunity. I know that the Barry and the Fall are on, and they've both spent a lot of time to understanding this issue and that sort of thing. And I think it would be prudent just to check in with them real quick and see if I know they're paying attention to the dialogue here, and they may have a suggestion along those lines. So, Nafal, let me go to you.
Can you hear us?
We can.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Hello, Commissioners. Nepal Izagagi from Environmental Services. We've worked on this for a while, and we've received a lot of comments and input and concerns from the Sierra Club and also from the other side of that coin. And what we were able to do was dig down to what is the purpose of the ban that they were requesting. It's not just to have a ban over 3 months. It's to have a ban ahead of potential storms that are going to cause runoff. So we started digging a little further and looked at actual rainfall data in Tallahassee for the last 2 years or so during those summer months. And to our surprise, for example, the June 2019, we didn't have any storm that exceeded the 1-inch storm in 24 hours. In June of the previous year, in 2020, we had 4 storms that added up to the 1-inch storm per 24 hours. Essentially, what we ended up finding was our rainy season, what is called rainy season, we don't have those intense storms that exceed the 1-inch storm runoff in 24 hours that will cause you that runoff, and i.e. taking the fertilizer away from the lawns and what have you to our surface waters. And based on that, we modified the ordinance to provide a very targeted area instead of having an indiscriminate ban over 3 months. We put in there a very targeted prohibition. If you have a forecast that a 1-inch storm in 24 hours is coming, then you're not allowed to fertilize at that time. And I believe with that approach, we're serving both ends of that equation really well.
And if I may add to that, in order to exceed what is the state standards set out in the model ordinance, the statute does require that you have scientific evidence to support that. Going beyond that, to that end, we have not found that evidence to support what it is we're being asked to do in terms of the summer month ban. As a matter of fact, we found evidence to the contrary that states that it could have a negative impact in that people would tend to fertilize in our non-growing months, and when the plants are not taking up the fertilizer instead is just sitting on the ground and being washed off. We did contact, it's important that I express to you how much public outreach and general outreach occurred with this item. We not only brought this through our Water Resources Committee, our Advisory Committee on Quality Growth, and our Science Advisory Committee, who's tasked with looking at exactly these sort of things, all of whom supported staff's targeted approach to this. But we also reached out to the 14 counties in the state, 14 or 11? 14 counties in the state that have adopted a prohibition, and none were able to provide us any sort of evidence in the form of a study to support that. It seems like they were adopted based upon this perception that a summer month ban would actually be helpful. And there were about 12 points that the Sierra Club brought to us asking us to work on. And I have to stress, we've addressed 11 of those 12. It's this one that we simply can't come to terms on. If we felt like it would be beneficial, if we felt like it would have adverse impacts, we certainly wouldn't be here debating it today. We'd be moving forward with everybody hand in hand. We do have the support of our local IFAS extension. We do have the support of our commercial fertilizer folks on this as it's written right now. So I need to stress all that moving forward.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. County Administrator. Did you have another thought, Mr. County Administrator?
None at all. I was just going to say, thank you, Nafal, Barry, and Scott. We appreciate it. I was going to hand it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you, Mr. County Administrator. Mr. Dozier, do those conclude your comments?
Almost. And I'll wrap this up pretty quick. So for Mr. County Administrator, for Barry and Nafal, I appreciate you bringing them on because you all have been doing a deep dive on this, and I know you've worked with a lot of different groups. It is an interesting moment when we have some who, I'll say this a different way. Normally, our science advisory, water advisory, all these different groups are in lockstep. And this was a little complicated because I was hearing some different opinions from those who normally agreed. One thing resonated above all else, and that was the training. No matter what we do, and I spoke with County Administrator during the briefing about this, the 1-inch rainfall event, I was concerned that wasn't enforceable. I mean, that is a pretty big issue here, is to encourage people not to, or to restrict fertilizing within that time period. Ms. County Administrator, if I remember correctly, it will be part of the training, the certification, but also you talked about a public information campaign. What I would like to suggest, and here is my addendum, and I'm bringing it in for a landing here, is I would like to know what the plans are for that training and that community outreach, hopefully in partnership with the city through the TAP program or others. That would be very helpful. And perhaps when that information comes back to us, we could reflect on the moratorium if we've gathered more information, or if there's any additional comments about exemptions, about our growing season versus the growing season in Central and South Florida. Just, bring us back a little more information on that. But, Mr. County Administrator, would it be acceptable to bring back additional information as you develop those training programs?
Mr. County Administrator.
Absolutely. If that's the direction of the board, be happy to do so.
Thank you. Will my second? Okay. That is it, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. This was a complicated issue. Sorry it took an extra minute, but I think this was important. Thanks.
That's perfectly fine. Commissioner Dozier, thank you very much. Vice Chair Proctor.
I'm actually, over time, have come to recognize the word nitrogen in any format in this community. It relates automatically. It's synonymous with Wakulla Spring. And I begin to ponder at what point, if any, and if Wakulla Springs was not Wakulla Springs and next door to us, would we even have these efforts of fertilizer, all like that? And I mean, the catalyst for what we do in this area is simply Wakulla Springs. But it's not necessarily for the good of anything related to our drinking water. And to what extent, and we never get a review of the drinking water and its content, but we always say the index that we measure is Wakulla Springs. Is it possible in this county that runoff, fertilizer, and all the things that go into our drinking water, can it ever become one of the measures by which we determine if something is detrimental? I'm not tired of hearing about Wakulla Springs, but I think that when it comes to water consideration, it should be augmented with what we drink, water we drink, drinking water, also to be a basis of which it matters to us. I'm concerned today because Dr. Dial indicated that the IFAS report does not measure runoff that is of a street variety, but it measures the runoff off of yards. If that's the case, then probably the dominant share of runoff itself is not even measured if Dr. Dial is accurate. And I want to ask staff if this is if this is really accurate, that the IFAS report does not measure runoff that is not of personal yards. If that's a problem. And I mean, if staff can refute that or say if it's true, I'm not trying to pit anyone against anyone, but if we're not measuring runoff, what Crawfordville Road is doing, Wakulla is about to poison Wakulla Springs themselves with the widening of 319. So us having this high bar and them building a major road, why do we have a bar? And if runoff is not measured, then we really, this is an ordinance as simple as a placebo. It's a placebo ordinance. It does nothing. it's merely there and it looks good on paper, Commissioner Dozier. So I want to ask, can staff speak to that about the IFAS report that says that runoff is not measured? I have a problem with that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. I noticed that in Mr. Dial's letter as well, in the findings from IFAS. Is Nafal still available? Nafal, did you hear the question, sir?
Yes, I heard the question, and I didn't find anything in IFAS that explicitly excluded what Dr. Dial has mentioned in his letter.
And commissioners, if I might add there, runoff from a roadway it may contain contaminants, of course. That's going into a stormwater facility that's tasked with both attenuation and treatment. What IFAS was looking at specifically in these studies was the effect of typical lawn fertilizers and runoff. So that's why this study was only focused on what it is that you're putting down on soil to amend that soil, whether that be nitrogen, phosphorus, or was it potassium, the last one. And did not concern itself with runoff from roadways and impervious surfaces.
Can I?
Commissioner, if I add, Mr. Administrator, if I may add, when we were making the decisions and evaluating all this information, we also did not do it in a vacuum. We know that we have one of the most progressive, if not the most progressive, stormwater runoff rules in the state of Florida. So we're very comfortable when it comes to stormwater runoff and its management and treatment.
Mr. Chairman, if I might
Yes,
ask the
Mr.
last
Vice Chair.
question.
Yep.
Under the training and certification, we're proposing that all individuals applying fertilizer shall hold a current county-approved best management practices training certificate. Are we literally saying that anybody that go to Lowe's and buy some fertilizer have to be trained by the county first? I'm asking staff.
Yeah, Nafal, would you be able to answer that question, sir?
Yes, I know the answer to that question is no. No is the answer to that question. If you're applying fertilizer to your home, you are not required to have a certificate or a license.
That's for commercial.
It's the commercial application.
Okay, well, the previous bullet that you all told us is that all applicators, and I think definitionally that means person spreading fertilizer, including private, commercial, and government employees. So there's a commercial, government, and a private category. And it indicates categorically that all individuals applying fertilizer should hold a county-approved training certificate. I'm a little bit muffused by this. I'm beyond confused. I'm muffused by what I'm reading here.
Yes, sir, there is an exemption in there further down.
Not under the training and certification, sir, that you have on page 5. If you tell me where in the ordinance it is, I'll go there.
There's the applicator exemptions.
Page 11. Look.
Exemptions portion.
Vice Chair Proctor, have any other questions, sir?
Are you talking about subsection C on page 12? About homeowners, is that what you're saying?
Yes, Commissioner. There's the training is to apply to commercial applicators, the folks that are out there doing this most commonly. Obviously, it would be imprudent for us to require that of everyone who could go buy a bag of fertilizer from the store and use it. In that instance, where you have an owner spreading their own fertilizer, the controlling the content of that fertilizer and providing guidelines through public outreach as to how to apply that fertilizer, following the instructions on the fertilizer itself, is what helps safeguard our homeowners. But the commercial applicators, whether they're working for homeowners, businesses, or the government, are the ones who we're targeting with the training program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. Okay, so seeing no other speakers, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Commissioner Dozier, would you please, I know you had a motion for option 1, but with modifications. I think I understand what your motion was about. Could you please restate it, though?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know it was a little bit confusing. I would like to see an agenda item come back that articulates what the training and public education programs will look like, understanding they may be evolving. This is going to be a critical piece. So that comes back, and it could include additional information about a summertime ban or moratorium as we work through that issue.
In addition to option 1.
In addition to option 1. So we move forward with the ordinance as revised and with substantial agreement from all of these parties. And then we look at those two issues to ensure that training and public education is as robust as we should have it in the future.
Understood. And that motion was seconded by Commissioner Maddox. All in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1 with Commissioner Proctor in dissent. All right, the next item, number 27, is going to be introduced by our county attorney, Madam County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this agenda item being presented to you is a follow-up to the initial vote taken by this board at the November 17th, 2020 board meeting, at which the board voted unanimously to deny the application to amend the Southwood 6th Amendment DRIDO. The applicant, after that board action, elected to seek relief under the alternate dispute resolution process in section 70.51. At that time, the county engaged in that ADR process with not only the applicant, but also the city, which, like the county, had denied the application. A special magistrate was appointed. The parties agreed to waive mediation, held the hearing, which also involved input from interested parties. And then earlier this year in April, the special magistrate issued his recommended order, which found that any expectation that the owner applicant may have had that the subject property would be rezoned for a single-family home site appeared unreasonable. The property has always been intended to benefit the Southwood community as recreational open space and contains, albeit a small portion, of wildlife habitat. As a result of that and all of the other information and findings in the special, or in the recommendation, that the special magistrate found that the action of the Leon County Commission was not arbitrary or unreasonably burdensome to the property at issue in the application. Accordingly, we are recommending that the board adopt option 1, which is to approve the recommended order of the special magistrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam County Attorney. Commissioner Maddox, I have you in the speaker's queue, and then Commissioner Dozier.
Move option 1.
Motion's been made for option 1 by Commissioner Maddox and seconded by, was it Commissioner Dozier? Okay. All right. Commissioner Maddox, any other comments, sir? All right. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was a complicated issue. We had a lot of input from the applicant, but also from the neighbors and their legal counsel. That was very helpful to work through. And I appreciate, obviously, where we landed. I think we were in the right posture, and I'm glad the judge made the recommendation he did. Madam County Attorney, my question is, what are the next steps in this process, if any, going forward, and particularly in regards to communication with any of the parties? This has been quasi-judicial, and I just want to make sure we're in the right posture going forward.
Madam County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Commissioner Dozier, other members of the commission, if the board takes action to approve the recommended order, the proceeding under section 70.51 told the applicant's time to appeal the board's initial denial of its application. So if the board approves the recommended order this evening, the applicant would still have the opportunity to appeal the denial to the circuit court. That time would start to run. Did I answer completely your question?
What was the duration? What's their time frame?
21 days.
21 days. Okay, I
Yes.
just want to make sure I had that. So for the purposes of communication with the applicant, their representatives, and this is a district issue, so, or the neighbors in the district, and my at-large colleagues may hear about this as well if no one else does, we should wait for that 21 days to engage in any conversation just in case there is an appeal.
So it was a quasi-judicial proceeding initially. Given that there might be an appeal, we would, of course, recommend to the board that any communications be limited until that time runs. Because if on appeal, the circuit court disagrees with the decision of the board, it will come back to the board again.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Chair, there are, I think, other issues to be discussed, but out of respect for this next step in the process, I'm going to wait until after the 21 days or an appeal to see what happens. And again, just want to thank everyone who was involved. This took a lot of effort on all parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dozier. I've got Vice Chair Proctor.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm well pleased that our county attorney has outlined her perceptions of those steps of due process for this applicant or this person who comes before us tonight, and her articulation of those steps of due process, including the judgments of the judge. Cats and the dogs duked it out fair and square in a process that was prescribed beforehand. I'm well satisfied. Secondly, I'm comfortable tonight because the district commissioner is comfortable with this outcome. Our county attorney and our district commissioner, both persuasive, and I will support this.
Thank you, Vice Chair Proctor. All right, motion has been made for option 1 by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. All right, so we are now done with our public hearing items. We'll move back to items for discussion by county commissioners. Commissioner Proctor had already spoken. We'll move on now to Commissioner Maddox. All right, I can skip you if you want. Are you good to go now?
I have no, Mr. Chair.
Say it again.
This is coming time?
If you'd like to speak, yeah, now's the time. If you have any comments for discussion.
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay. It's hard to hear you with the mask and the plexiglass. Yeah. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Might not have stood out to anyone else, but I didn't pull the Waste Pro item for the first time in the last couple of years. I see the smile under the mask from the county administrator. I just want to appreciate our staff for adding additional data there, and it has been a couple of years since we've been looking at that data pretty closely. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. We've had a lot of good things happening. The Sustainabiz, is that how we're saying it? Awards, I really like that. So, and our sustainability office is doing a lot of great things. Truly appreciate that. But the two things I wanted to highlight specifically for tonight, forgive me, Mr. Chair, there is one issue relating to the assistance programs. I'm going to wait on that. There was one other thing. We have Created Equal coming up on May 20th. Phenomenal program, and on Emancipation Day. And I think that is fantastic. I wanted to piggyback on that and just make everyone aware that WFSU will host a Zoom this Thursday at 7 p.m. You can sign up online with a panel discussion. There's some overlap in the panelists to discuss the movie Invisible History, Middle Florida's Hidden Roots. This is a movie produced by FSU Film School, Valerie Schoon. She is notable in her credits. And this movie, WFSU, is the host station, but it will be aired nationally. This is huge, and it involves folks from FAMU, a lot of our different organizations in town, and it's going to look at the history of plantations and slavery in North Florida. It will be aired at 9 o'clock on the 20th. So nice compliment to our Created Equal. You could leave that program and go watch the movie or participate in the conversation this week. So just really wanted to highlight that. It's a great series of events coming up in the next couple weeks. The last thing, Mr. Chair, is just to put this in the record. I've been having some conversations with the county administrator. As we look at the next round of rental assistance programs, I know that our staff's going to bring us back the details at our budget workshop. But I have heard from one landlord in particular, and there's been some comments from others, that there may be a bit of a nuance in how we're prioritizing different applicants. And I think it will be important for us to just look at that program to make sure that assistance is getting to those who need it, regardless of if they are drawing unemployment, for example. There may be people who've retained their jobs and may not qualify as quickly as someone who is on unemployment. I will leave it there for right now, Mr. Chair, but I wanted to mention it here because it is something that I'm hearing about. I'm trying to look into a little bit more, and I would love to talk about it once we see the recommendation from our staff on the 25th. With that, Mr. Chair, I've got nothing else.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Jackson, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Great job running the meeting tonight. Thanks once again. I want to talk, I'm going to keep bringing this up, about the homeless population, West Pensacola Street, as well as open camping on the right-of-way of U.S. Highway 90 at the Walmart and Capitol Circle intersection. They were approached recently by law enforcement officials that represent many of the enforcement policies in the city limits, and were instructed to vacate or else be issued trespass. And at that point, they informed them of the reopening of the Carney shelter and accessing those resources. And that was the extent of the conversation. We actually have tents that are in the public right, not public right of way, but the state right of way. And I can see some sort of tragic incident where someone is driving, falls asleep, or maybe even impaired or intoxicated, runs off the road, and there is no barrier between them and a major thoroughfare, 4-lane thoroughfare. In addition, the property at 2230 West Pensacola Street, still serving as a unlicensed homeless encampment. It currently shows on the property appraisers a website as being owned by a Waffle House out of Norcross, Georgia. I don't know that they're aware that there's a homeless encampment on the property. I do know that there's open drug use that has been, or excuse me, it has been reported or alleged that there's open drug use from surrounding apartment residents. I'm going to keep bringing it up because I don't want to say I didn't say something and then a tragedy occur. We have a pedestrian jaywalking. In addition, since we have kind of semi-repopulated the Carney Center, these are concerns 7 years ago, no, maybe 6 years ago, I decided to run on public safety and welfare. And that was one of the key things I was concerned about, and it still remains a concern. I think that we need to address the homeless population, don't get me wrong, but I don't think them getting hit by a vehicle that's out of control on Highway 90 after midnight one night is protecting the welfare of either drivers or the homeless folks. In addition to that, I was contacted by, I believe it's called Highland Real Estate Capital, is the name of the company that owns Capital West Shopping Center. They have an investment in Ross, Bells, and the brand new T-Mobile that just moved in there. Just opened their doors where their customers are being harassed and followed to their vehicles at the shopping center. Again, this is a city limit enforcement issue, so I'm not going to point any fingers as far as law enforcement is concerned, but I know that we frequent, when I say we, my family frequent that area, and I see it firsthand, so it's not something that is made up. Whatever we can do, if it's an agenda item, I don't know exactly what can be done. I know that they cannot have encampments on a state right-of-way. I know that for sure. I can't speak to the Waffle House. Maybe they have some special rental fee for them because they're in Norcross, Georgia, and they're allowing them to camp there. I don't know. But if there's a way for us to look into it, I don't know if we pass that concern on to our local law enforcement officials at the county level or not. Mr. Administrator, any guidance on that?
Mr. County Administrator.
I think, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, obviously we'll continue to work with Commissioner Jackson. He's been on this issue, and we've been discussing it. As Commissioner Jackson said, we have been engaged with local law enforcement on the issue, Sheriff's Office, Police Department, FDOT, commercial property owners, and others, and we'll continue to do so. And that's really, I know that's not a great answer, especially given the mobile nature of these groups and some of the challenges, in particular with people on private property. I think the right-of-way issue is going to be addressed very soon, but that work continues with us with respect to the private property. But I think our continuous engagement with law enforcement is going to be very important on this issue, and we'll certainly continue that.
Commissioner Jackson, we also have coming up in July the joint workshop with the City Commission on the Big Bend Continuum of Care Strategic Plan, which should come out and be posted in early July to the public and to us. So,
and that's great for July. But again, I say that I'm going to go on record tonight as saying that this is a public safety concern, and I have done my due diligence and I've done what I'm supposed to do.
Yes, sir. Duly noted.
I will sleep well tonight knowing that I have shared that it is a grave concern of mine.
Duly noted.
On a more positive note, I do want to throw a shout out to Christy Henry and her group that came out to the Fort Braden community on 2 consecutive Saturdays. Second Saturday, she partnered up with our local health department and provided vaccinations for several hundred of our residents in the Fort Braden community at the Fort Braden Community Park. Her first Saturday there, they offered free breakfast. I know that the county helped sponsor these events, so that's why I'm giving them a shout out as well. And then on the second Saturday, not only did they offer second harvest food items, but also vaccinations and several hundred. I hope to get a count. I was hoping that Claudia was here tonight so we could get an accurate count, but I look forward to getting that from her in the future. So kudos to the county for getting out there, as well as moving forward with the with our chamber and the Little Libraries project. It's also been designated at 2 different sites in the Fort Braden community, so we're looking forward to that. Thanks to Christy again for her hard work and the work of her fellow people. One personal note, I'd like to welcome a brand new grandbaby. Not my baby, it's my daughter's grandbaby. Make that clear. Elizabeth Joyce Richards was born on Friday night. It was really a cool deal. My youngest daughter she only weighed 138 pounds at the height of her pregnancy, and somehow, someway gave birth to a 8-pound, 9-ounce baby girl. So we're excited. We have them home, and she is finding out exactly the turmoil and the lack of sleep that she put us through. But we're excited to welcome her to the neighborhood. So congratulations to Elizabeth Joyce. I think they're going to call her Ellie. Can't seem to have anything but girls, Commissioner Minor. I know that you're an expert as well.
No complaints from this side of the dais.
Right.
So,
thank you so much.
all right. Thanks, Commissioner Jackson. All right, Commissioner Cummings, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and congratulations, Commissioner Jackson, on being a grandfather. I'm deprived so far. I'm not a grandmother yet, but maybe eventually. But as you all know, I'm very passionate about the health, safety, and welfare of our children. And I'm very proud to be this commission's representative on the Children's Services Council. So in that respect, I want to report that we held our inaugural meeting last Thursday, right here in these chambers, and the sentiment was that we should have a chairperson or vice chairperson, one from the public sector, one from the elected sector. And so in that vein, we elected Judge Sestrom as the chairperson and Ms. Carmen Connor as the vice chairperson. So we will be meeting on the 19th to continue the work. We have some deadlines coming up, I believe, June the 1st, so we're working diligently to try to meet those deadlines so that we can do the service for our children that we're appointed to do. So I'm very proud of the accomplishments we've done so far on the commission in a very short period of time, and looking forward to doing even greater work at our meeting on the 19th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank or acknowledge the Leon County Department of Health is hosting some vaccine clinics at the schools, the high schools this week. Tomorrow from 3 to 6, they'll be at Childs High School on the bus ramp. And we encourage all our folks in the Northeast, if you have not been vaccinated, to come by the school between 3 and 6. If you're 16 or older, you can bring a parent with you and you can get vaccinated there on the bus ramp at Childs. So that's an awesome thing. I think it was at Godby yesterday, earlier in the week. So that's good news. I wanted to congratulate the recently selected classes of Leadership Tallahassee and Youth Leadership Tallahassee. Those letters went out this week. I coordinate Youth Leadership Tallahassee at Childs, and it's always exciting to see my little sophomores who are going to be juniors next year get selected. Very competitive selection process, as most of y'all know. And also wanted to congratulate my aide, Kyle Frost, for being selected for Leadership Tallahassee, Class 39. So that's good. Good for you, Kyle. Y'all know I'm a big fan of those leadership programs at the Chamber. And this will be YLT's 18th class, so I think that's awesome. And I just wanted to encourage folks in my part of the county in the Northeast to be patient with their gas consumption. We had some substantial waits and lines at our gas stations in the Northeast yesterday specifically. My understanding, as we have mentioned tonight, there is really not a gas supply problem, that we are not impacted by the pipeline that was hacked. And so folks are kind of panicked buying gas, and we're running out of gas. And so I just want to encourage folks to calm down, only get what you need. If you need to fill up, wait till you're on empty, don't top it off, because we could create some problems there. And so that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Welch. Okay, I'll try to run through this pretty quickly. May 16th to the 22nd is National Public Works Week. I'd like to see if we could have a motion to have a proclamation for that week.
So moved.
A motion is made by Commissioner Proctor, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you very much. The Anti-Defamation League has sent us draft language for a resolution that condemns hate and extremism. They're doing this nationwide, and I'd like to seek the board's approval to bring forth this language for consideration as a resolution at the next board meeting. Motions are made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Welch. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Thank you. You may know Jim Stevenson and Tara Tanaka. They are longtime conservationists living here in Leon County. Recently, they were just awarded the 2020 Florida Wildlife Federation Conservation Award, which was in the Tallahassee Democrat, I think last week. They bought 48 acres of land that they have taken upon themselves to conserve and protect. It's a certified wildlife habitat, and they've just did a tremendous job fighting for wildlife and natural habitat conservation. So I'd like to see if the board would consider a motion to present them with a proclamation acknowledging their career-long efforts. Motion's been made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner, let's do Commissioner Welch this time again. All those in favor of the motion, as stated, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And then finally, there's a June 13th, 2021 is being known as Race Amity Day. It's a day that's been acknowledged since 2011 by Massachusetts, and also recently South Carolina joined on board. It's basically a day where it celebrates the friendships and collaborations between people of different races and cultures. And so, with your approval, I'd like to seek a motion for the board to have a motion recognizing June 13th, 2021 as Race Amity Day. Motion's been made by Commissioner Welch. Second, Race Amity Day. Motion's been made by Commissioner Welch and seconded by, was that you, Commissioner Jackson, or Commissioner Maddox? Commissioner Maddox. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you. And then finally, just wanted to thank Deputy County Administrator Alan Rosenzweig for his role in the April 13th meeting. He sat in this chair right next to me and did a great job, I thought. This is the first time in all his time at the county that he actually served in that role. So just wanted to thank him again for that hard work. Great job, sir. And then lastly, just wanted to encourage everyone listening to please continue to follow the CDC guidelines. Things are really improving nationwide. It looks like things are starting to open up, but it's not over yet. So please continue to follow those guidelines. With that, you have a motion to adjourn. All in favor of the motion, second? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.